Jack Carson's mouth was dry, and beads of sweat dotted his forehead. Another look in the rearview mirror confirmed his worst fear. They had found him. 15 minutes earlier, he had spotted the black SUV trailing discreetly several cars back. He had taken a circuitous route through town, hoping the SUV would continue on, but it hadn't. Its course had mirrored his own, and now there was no doubt in his mind. They had found him. His nightmare had begun innocently enough several months ago, when he had been contacted by a man who identified himself only as Falcon. He claimed to be an Air Force pilot recruited for a program called Indigo Skyfold, whose purpose was to spray chemtrails of hazardous material into the atmosphere for both weather manipulation and defense purposes. Falcon had chosen Carson, believing his status as the #1 crime reporter for the Kansas City Star made him the perfect person to expose the government's covert agenda. Like everyone else, Carson had seen the fluffy white ribbons crisscrossing the sky for years and thought nothing of it. 3 clandestine meetings with Falcon changed his mind and ultimately the course of his life. The evidence presented by Falcon was so compelling, Carson could smell Pulitzer Prize and pursued every lead given by the pilot. The last piece of evidence Carson needed for his story was a sample of the toxic chemical stew purported to contain aluminum oxide, ethylene dibromide, and barium. A 4th meeting was arranged where Falcon was to deliver a sample of the spray, but he never showed. Carson learned the next day that Falcon had died on the way to their meeting when his brakes conveniently failed, resulting in a lethal accident. Falcon had told Carson that he and the other pilots in the program had been admonished by superiors that their missions were a matter of national security, and any breaches of confidentiality would have dire consequences. There was no doubt in Carson's mind that Falcon's accident was such a consequence, but there was no proof. Falcon's demise wasn't the only suspicious death associated with the chemtrail conspiracy. Carson had enlisted the aid of Walt Williams, a retired police officer who had opened his own private investigation service. Seeking further confirmation of the government's secret program, Williams had submitted their findings to Frank Katz, a professor at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, who was known to have an interest in the subject. Katz was thrilled and proclaimed the new evidence offered by Falcon was the final piece of the puzzle he had needed to finish a paper which he planned to submit for publication exposing the government's secret operation. Frank Katz conveniently died of a heart attack before he could publish his final draft. Equally perplexing was the disappearance of Louise Shipley, an employee of the chemical giant Monsanto. This mega-corporation had been mentioned multiple times in the articles Carson had found, linking the company's development of aluminum-resistant seeds to the poisons that had been sprayed and drifted to the earth over the years. Shipley had come to Kansas City from Monsanto's office in St. Louis with information for Carson. Inexplicably, the young whistleblower disappeared the night before their meeting. 3 people about to expose government secrets were dead or missing. Coincidence? Carson didn't think so. After the disappearance of Louise Shipley, Carson had gone into hiding. He made one last stop at his apartment and never went back. He withdrew cash from his bank account and destroyed all his credit cards. He tossed his cell phone in a dumpster and bought a burner. He even abandoned his car in an underground garage and bought an old clunker, manufactured before the advent of GPS. He rented a cheap motel room under an assumed name and paid in cash.
to keep listening to this audiobook. I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.